Perfect. Okay, so good morning and welcome to this Inti and GoTo webinar. It's great to have you with us today. I'm a vendor business manager at Inti. My name is Nick Wilkinson. I've been with Inti for about 14 months now, and I'm aligned to the GoTo as an account. I'm really excited about working with GoTo. As a vendor, I love what they're doing with their support solutions. I've worked directly for MSPs in the past with support and service desks, and I know the importance to those businesses and having sort of a robust support solution with advanced capabilities so they can best serve their customers. And that's why I'm excited to be working so closely with GoTo. And I strongly believe that our partners at Inti are going to see GoTo solutions as a perfect fit for them. So that's what we're going to cover off today in today's session. It's going to be around 45 minutes long. Obviously, got Will Richards, who's a regional partner manager on the call, who I'll hand over to shortly. But ultimately, what I want you guys to get out of the webinar today is that a much better idea of the different support solutions that GoTo can offer, but it's quite expensive in terms of what they can offer. So will touch into a bit of history on GoTo, but then into what's included within their platform, specifically on the GoTo Resolve platform, which we really see as a great fit for our partners. And then there's going to be a demo provided by Ranjit, who's on the call as well from GoTo. And then there'll be details at the end about an incentive as well. So lots to cover off. But with that, I'll hand over to Will and we'll get cracking.
Thanks very much, Nick. Everyone, just want to say thanks very much for taking the time today to join the webinar. As Nick said, it's Friday morning, it's nearly the weekend, but hopefully it will bring you into the weekend with something to think about for your business around GoTo. So just a brief overview of myself. So I've been in GoTo for 5 years. We work closely with Inti for the last year and a half, and we're kind of using this stage now kind of as to launch our partnership. So you may not have heard the guys in Inti talk about GoTo too much. You may not have, but as Nick said, you'll hear a lot more from Inti talking about GoTo and some of our our solutions. So what I do now is I'm just going to give you a brief overview of GoTo, because you may be thinking, I know I've heard of you, maybe I haven't heard of you. So we'll move those slides forward, Amy, if that's okay. On to the next one, please. So GoTo. So who's GoTo? So I've actually been in business for over 20 years, and I guarantee that nearly every single one of you on the call would have used our solutions, because GoTo is formerly LogMeIn, and we were the first company that invented remote support. Back in 2003, that feels a lifetime ago. That the dial-up time where someone else in your house couldn't make a phone call whilst you're on the internet, and if someone would be screaming at you to get off the internet because someone had to make a phone call. That feels like a long time ago, but then also not so long ago. And as a business, LogMeIn, we saw a solution to say 20 years ago, people want to be able to work remotely and access tools remotely. And in the last 20 years, it's nearly completely flipped opposite. And LogMeIn as GoTo now helps companies do that. And especially for you as MSPs, you're well aware of supporting users and companies remotely. And that's exactly what we do. We've done that for 20 years. As a business, we're over 1 billion of revenue, operate over 90 countries, and over 1 million customers. And that's in a very short time frame in the last 20 years. And you look at where technology is now around AI and chatbots, and it's a really exciting journey. And like I said there, everything has flipped over, in terms of the way we work, and especially in the last 3 years. I can remember a couple of years ago, everyone was talking about, the way the future of the work, and we, it was expected that by 2030, that more people would work remotely than in the office. I mean, how wrong was that? That presentation I was given by GoTo CEO back in February 2020. So in the last few years, and you guys will know this as MSPs, a lot of people have gone out, they've deployed teams. The number of companies that we speak to, who provide remote support tools, via Zoom and Microsoft Teams, companies had to adapt very, very quickly. It was sink or swim. And what we've really been able to help companies with in GoTo, and we'll talk about more in the presentation, is communicate clearly with their internal and external. So internally in their business and externally with their customers. And for you guys as MSPs, supporting your customers is so important. So it's so important to have the right tools. I'm just going to move the next slide on, if that's okay, Amy. So what we're going to talk about specifically today is GoTo Resolve. So it's an all-in-one IT management support solution, and it's built specifically for MSPs. And I think that's why we've taken such a a big launch with Inti, because there's such a gap in the market in this space. There's a lot of solutions out there that we'll talk about today. There's TeamViewer, and solutions like that. but there's no one in the market that's doing what we're doing, and there's real excitement in this space because of what this solution does is going to help you MSPs troubleshoot remote support issues and on-site issues faster with your customer, providing a better service. And we always say with this solution as well, it's not a money-saving tool for MSPs. This is a money-making tool for MSPs, to be able to deliver better service, onboard more customers, and that's what we're looking to do to help you. I'm not going to talk too much because that's going to go straight into Ranjit's presentation, and he'll be kicking me under the desk if he could remote virtually. But what GoToResolve does, it does everything all in one. So you can see on my slide here around visual engagement, RMM, and remote support. So what I'm going to do is just move on the next slide as well, please, Amy. So a very, very quick overview before we show you the tool. And like I said, and Nick said at the start, this is just a very brief, introduction to GoTo. What we'd really like is obviously for you guys to obviously reach out to us after the call with Inti and, book in specific time as well. So we're not gonna be able to show everything today, but in terms of a very quick overview of where we win is, it's a multiple solution. So that's from, also includes MDM, multi-platform support. A lot of feedback we get from MSPs is does it support Apple, because a lot of tools out there don't support iOS. There's RMM built into that as well, mobile engagement support. So one of the great tools we have is LiveLens, which Jay will talk to you about, which access mobile devices cameras, and also includes conversational ticketing, integration to Microsoft Teams. But where the key area where we win is, it's nearly every week you hear of, a software company or a different company being hacked. We've got zero trust, access control. So everything is completely built from the ground up. So, it's a big advantage for us in terms of from a security perspective. And when you're supporting your customers, the first question I'd imagine a lot of the time is when you're recommending a tool or you're using a tool to access their network is how secure is it? So this is going to make your life a lot easier as well. So move on to the next slide, please, Amy. So in terms of competitors that we have, so like we don't really have any competitors. And I know that sounds really cheesy, but TeamViewer, as you know, is just a remote support tool. ConnectWise is more RMM. Beyond Trust, again, a bit more of a remote support tool. What we're looking to do with GoToResolve is embedding multiple aspects, and we've built it into one platform. So instead of me talking about it, giving you a very generic overview, I'm going to hand over to my colleague Ranjit, who's going to bring, for a very, very, demo of the solution. But like we said, this is not a one size fits all demonstration. Like what we really want to do is every MSP that we work with is different. They have different organization, different customers, different needs. So what we really want to do is, give you a brief overview of what the solution is, but of course, please reach out to us following this, for a more tailored specific demo. So Ranjit, over to you, my friend.
And sorry, Will and Ranjit, just before you start, there's one thing I wanted to mention as well, just for the audience. If you do have any questions throughout, if you pop them in the chat, and we're happy to answer them throughout the presentation. And obviously any that we don't answer, we can answer at the end. But yeah, let's try and keep it interactive. If you've got questions, feel free to pop them in the chat.
I have a question for you actually, Nick, before we hand over to Ranjit. I very rudely didn't ask you for your feedback on how you found on MSPs that we've worked with so far and some of the initial feedback.
No, it's a good point. Well, it's really positive so far, and I think that's because the point you alluded to, the fact that it is something different for Inti. So we don't have a solution like this on our line card. The fact that it is an all-in-one sort of support solution, which Ranjit's going to delve into specifically for MSPs. When I started working with you, I thought this is just, I was getting really excited about it. I thought it was a perfect fit. I'm sure the sales guys are having conversations about this at the moment. So for me, it's yeah, like I said, it's all in one. The ticketing, the LiveLens you alluded to had such positive feedback on that. So yeah, I feel so far so good. I just want to make sure the partners are aware of everything that we can offer, basically.
Absolutely, which is a good allude into Ranjit, who's going to bring us through a quick demonstration. Thanks, Nick. Appreciate that.
Perfect. Thanks a lot, Will. Thanks, Nick. That's a good point that you mentioned, Nick, because that's what we've done. So if I think Will was just talking about the same thing around what we do, how we actually achieve it. So one of the objectives of GoToResolve is to give you that all-in-one IT platform. So let's take a step back. As an MSP, for us, you have a couple of things. One, time is value. Time is money. Literally, you cannot spend time doing research. You cannot spend time doing these ad hoc support calls, but you still have to do these ad hoc support calls. There are times where you have to do ad hoc remote support, but let's take any other solution that Will was talking about. You end up spending at least 5 to 10 minutes trying to get onto that solution so that you can remote into that particular solution, right? Or to the particular device and try to troubleshoot that particular device. So that's where we built this particular tool as a remote management and monitoring, and also give you the hardware support and give you the the whole remote execution, and then give you the the whole ticketing, all of that under one roof. So that's the main objective. So GoToResolve is built as an all-in-one IT support tool, which is built to support any device, agnostic of any device. But again, at the end of the day, when you're supporting your customers, be it you do it for for an enterprise customer or for any mom and pop store, you need to have a tool that can actually first back up all the work that you do, because you're spending time and you need to show what you did on that particular machine. Second thing that you want to show is give them a tool that they can be happy about and not be worried about if there's any kind of security concern. And that's where we kind of changed the whole dynamics of a remote support tool. So Amy, if you can go to the next slide. So what we've done in this particular case is we've built our tool based on a zero trust model. So you will have access to your client's machines, you will have complete control onto your client's machines, but you can always be rest assured that GoTo's got your back on this, because you technically use GoTo to access your machines, but you do not trust enough for GoTo to have access to your client's machines. Because as an MSP, security or access to your client's environment is the most crucial thing, because if you were the reason for something that went wrong on their environment, you might as well shut shop and move on. And that's exactly what GoTo has built the zero trust model for. So what we have here is we've got something called a signature key, which is like your built-in second factor of authentication. And that's what we actually pride ourselves upon, because even if GoTo's environment was completely compromised, your machine will still remain secure. And this is over and above the man in the middle attack and all of that stuff. All right. So what I'm going to do is, for now, I'm going to give you a quick overview. As Will and Nick mentioned, it won't be customized for your scenario. It's going to be on a high level, because I want to give you like an understanding of what the tool is capable of doing, how it is going to work, and what it's going to do. And I'm going to talk about 3-4 different use cases. The first one is when you actually do provide support. When, let's say, for example, you want to provide support for your users, you have two types of users. One is you have your contractual users, that where you manage the machines, update them, and we look at that. We also have those ad hoc support, users who reach out to you once in a month or once in a quarter, right? You still have to support them, but you don't have to have another tool, and nor do you have to have something that needs to be installed. So how do you support on that? Then we look at how you can actually support a mobile device, or maybe not just a mobile device, but how do you manage those machines that you currently manage, and how do you do activities on those machines that you currently manage. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take it step by step. The first thing that we're going to be looking at is your ad hoc non-contractual customers who reach out to you once in a month or once. You need to remote into their machine, you need to access their system, but you cannot afford to spend time trying to get them install a particular third-party application, worry about walking them through the whole process of how to install the third-party application, because some of them are not really tech savvy. So how do you support them? So that's where GoToResolve has what we call as the instant remote support. So the instant remote support is where you start a quick remote connection, no installations, no plugins, no changes to the environment, and it's one click, and even no downloads if need be. So all I need to do is, as a technician, start a connection. So here, a couple of things. On the right-hand side is that I'm going to be working as a technician, and on the left-hand side, you'll notice that I'm working as the end user. So I'm the ad hoc user who reached out after a long time. I just called you guys and I said I need support. So what I need support on my machine, because I just got a new Outlook license, and I'm not really sure how to configure Outlook on my machine. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start a quick remote support session. I'll get a link. I can either send this email, I can copy the link, send it across as a chat message. All I need to ask the user to do is open that particular link on their browser window. Again, for security purpose, because as I mentioned, we pride ourselves on security. We let the user know who is connected to. We let the user know what the email address is. We can also hide this email address if need be. And once the user clicks on it, you now have connection. So that's as simple as it can be. You need not actually install anything, make any changes, none of that stuff. And it's just Outlook configuration. I don't really need to spend time remoting into the machine. I just need to be able to see what the user is seeing and work on the user's environment. So that's what we have. So when I click on this, we give you a guided approach, because we know the problem that as MSP that you guys face. And literally we've conducted a lot of interviews, and this is one of the most sought after thing that the MSPs have actually came back with, which is give me an option to guide the user. Because when you ask someone to install something, or when you ask someone to do something, you don't really know what stage of the process they are in. And that's what we have done out here. So if you look at this, you literally get a step-by-step guided approach. It says on the user's machine, there is a share button. Ask the user to click on the share. So we assume the end user is completely not tech savvy. So this is how you guide them. So as soon as they click on share, it goes to the next stage where it says, here's the whole dialog box. Can you ask the user to share the whole screen? The user clicks on the share screen, and there you have a guided approach. Now you can see what the user is seeing, walk through the process, ask the user to go to Outlook, enter the email, enter the password, and then you're sorted out. But again, for auditing, because you are spending your time, so if you're going to charge them, you need something to look at. So how do you get this started, and how do you get this rolling? So this is where you're going to start the recording. So every session that you do can have recording, and we give you unlimited cloud storage. And again, if you notice, I said can have recording because it's up to you. Because if your customer does not like this session being recorded because they use sensitive info, you can always turn it off. You will still have a audit log of how long you worked on that particular machine. But if you want to have a copy of it, you can always record it and keep it on your system. Now, we also believe that, when you're spending time on such things, you want to have a first call resolution. You want to be able to solve this problem as soon as it happens, rather than having to go through the whole process of, oh, you know what, I'm not the right guy because this is getting way too technical. Can I bring in my boss? Because let's say I'm the new guy who just joined your team. And if I'm not really tech savvy, instead of saying, can I call you back, or can I have someone else take a look at it? As a technician, we have the option of collaborating with other technicians. So I can bring in another technician to join me on a multi-agent remote support, which allows me to add another technician. And let's say if it's a subject matter expert, they can tell me on how to solve such problems so I don't keep going back. Or I can do a warm handoff where I give them a brief about what I did and what they said, what's the next step, and so on and so forth, right? So that's where you do the quick ad hoc support. So you're not installing anything, you're not controlling anything, you're not making any changes. You send a link, start a session, and you have complete control on that particular machine that needs to be done, right? So that said, let's say if I have to control the machine, I just click on the system, then I start full control, and gives you full access to that particular system. Like I said, we're not going to get into each and everything. I'm going to show you a couple of differences on each of these components. All right, so this is when you do your ad hoc support on your user's machine. But again, at the same time, going back to the same non-techie user kind of a scenario, what if you have a user who has a hardware problem, right? Let's say he's gotten himself a new monitor, or he's gotten himself a new printer, and he has a hardware problem. So how do you provide a hardware support to the user? How do you remote into a workstation and walk them through a troubleshooting scenario on a workstation? Right, so this is where you use the end user's mobile device as your eyes and ears. So if you look at this, again, I'm going to split the screen. On the left-hand side, I have my mobile device. I'm going to be using the end user's eyes. I'm going to be using the mobile device to broadcast what they're seeing. And again, we want to keep it as simple as possible. We don't want to go through the whole process of, oh, you know what, you need to install something, you need to start a session. And the last thing that you want is to share your personal number, because we as MSPs, we kind of get on calls literally in the middle of the night, and you don't want people giving you a call and troubleshooting you late in the night. So this is where you can actually keep it more professional, but without having to share any personal details. So what you would do is start what we call as a camera share. And this is what Will was talking about, which is, seeing what the user is seeing, the lens, and the other term for it is basically a live lens. You're basically broadcasting what the user should be seeing and working on it. So let's say a user on the left hand side, he reached out to me. He said he's gotten his new monitor and the monitor is not working. Can you troubleshoot this particular thing? So as a technician or as an MSP, all I need to do is start a connection. And now, since you're sending it to a mobile device, why not send it as a text message? Again, all of this out of the box. You don't have to set up any gateways. You don't have to set up any servers. It's literally a plug and play solution that you actually have. And you'll also notice that I'm on my browser and not any third-party tool, because you don't need to have a downloaded app or a thick client. It actually runs from your mobile browser, which means you can actually remote into your workstation servers or do hardware support from your mobile device itself. So which means you don't have to actually go to your office or go to a place, and download open your laptop to provide remote assistance. So in this case, I have a user who's working, so I'm going to share this particular link. And if you notice this, all I'm going to do is on my mobile device on the left hand side, I'm going to start a session directly from my browser. I've just opened that link that was shared with me. If I send a text message, all the user needs to do is click on the text message, and that's all they need. And once they come here, we again go back to security, let them know that we're going to be using their Wi-Fi or their data and not to point at anything that that's sensitive. They click on accept, and that's pretty much it. So now you have a video streaming between the end user and your machine. And it's not a voice call. I mean, yes, you do have the audio video, but it's not a WhatsApp or a FaceTime call. This is a support solution at the end of the day, which means, let's say the user says, here's my monitor, and this is blank, can you help me out? So I can ask him to show me exactly where the cables are connected. So I can see the cables are fine. If this port's not working, I need to ask him to use the other ports. Now, sometimes the users don't really have a steady hand, and it's kind of hard to convince them, can you see that cable out there or that port out there? So the easiest option out here, again, as a support tool, is the option to annotate. Though when I click the annotate, my screen instantly pauses, and that's what you see on the left-hand side. I mean, I'm not holding it out. Here's my phone. My screen instantly pauses. So now I can actually annotate on the user's screen. I can say, you see this port out here? There might be a cabling problem. Can you try the next port and see if that works? If that port works, try it, or else can you try the other one, and that should work, right? So this is not just on a hardware level. If the user's stuck on a BitLocker page where he has to enter the credentials, you can always use your mobile device to actually see what the user is seeing. So this saves you a lot of time, because as an end user who's got a hardware problem, the last thing that they want to have is you getting on a call and trying then them explaining as to what the problem is, because if they're already frustrated with something that's not working, and then you need to actually spend time on this, is not something that they're actually going to enjoy. And once they're done with this support, you can always go back, check if it's sorted out, and if it is, you can close the session or add your notes as to what you did, and then close the session out here. Now, where this gets really interesting is at the end of all of these sessions, you actually have a recording for each of these sessions. So if you go into your reports, like I said, each and every session that I do is going to be recorded. You can actually see who ran the session, how long did they run it. For security purpose, you can turn this recording off, or you can actually have the recording enabled as well. So let me switch. Oh yeah, talking about this, it's a good example. I forgot I turned it off. Let's say customer A does not like recording, but customer B is fine with your recording. So that's where I can actually switch between different customers as part of the MSP account. Right, so I have customer A, I did an activity. Here's me remoting into the machine. I worked on this particular machine for about 3 minutes, and this was a start time. Here's the date. I can put it out and I can show this as the activity that I did. But customer B says, you know what, I wanted to know all the sessions, and when you remoted into my machine, you messed up something that caused my hardware to fail and all of that stuff. So this is where I can go back into my reporting and look at what I did and how long did I do it. So if I go back into this particular session, you'll notice I not only have the session that I did, but also has the recording of the activity that I did on that particular machine, right? So depending on which customer you want to have, you can always switch between the customers, and you can provide different reports for all of them. So customer A wants to know how many activities I did. So instead of just having one page and then downloading it and exporting it, you can actually move between these customers and see what are the different types of session, how often do you remote into this particular machine, and if you want to group it by the different agents, you can group it by the agents as well. Okay, because all I'm looking at is from an end user, so I just have myself, but when you have multiple agents, you can actually see each of the activities that they've done, and then you can group it by the organization as well. Now this is for your ad hoc support for your users. At the same time, you also have ad hoc support for hardware. What if you have the contracted customers, the customers whom you want to provide support to, whom you're managing and whom you're supporting? This is where you add your machine, and it's not just your Windows and Mac machines we support your Windows, Mac, and Android devices. So if you have any user who needs to have like supports on kiosks, you can actually set that up. When I say supporting, it's not just having access to the Android device, it's actually remoting into these machines. So if I want to access any of my machines, it's pretty straightforward process. I click on the remote connection, and this is what we call as the signature key, which is your zero trust architecture, which starts a session with that particular machine. And when I'm remoting into any of these systems, if there is no user, I am taken to the login page. So you, by default, you're running it as an administrator. So you will have complete admin rights on that machine when you're running on that system. You have the basic stuff like the scripting and all of that. We're not going to get into each of those details, but you will have access. You also have a snapshot of that particular machine. And I say snapshot, it gives you details of that particular system as the type of operating system, the BIOS details, the CPU utilization, the memory utilization, the whole 9 yards. If I need to work on this machine, GoTo believes in not disturbing the end user. So what we do have is background access. So here, if I need to work on this, let's say I have this user who reached out to me and he said his application is not working. I don't have to launch a remote control. I can actually do background activities with terminal access and file manager. Right? But on the other hand, let's say you have a customer A. Now, customer A who reached out to me and he said, you know what, we had an issue with the USB, someone plugging in a USB drive within my organization, and I need you to disable all the USB drives across all my machines. Now, yes, you could actually remote in individually, make changes to the registry file and work on this individually. But again, like I said, as MSPs, time is money. We cannot spend time doing one machine at a time. How do I get this automated? How do I get this rolling out to a bunch of machines? So this is where I would use what we call as remote execution. So remote execution allows me to do a bulk activity on all the machines at one shot. And what we've done here is that we've actually incorporated this with an AI. This again goes back to what Will was talking about with all the AI things that's happening right now. And it's not just any of those, just, or you can, if this, then do that kind of a scenario. It's a proper AI. So I had a customer who come in this morning with a mail saying that there was a security issue. Please turn off USB slots across all my machines. So now I need to create a script and deploy it on all my systems. So instead of me creating my own custom script, I can use the AI assistance, either a Python or PowerShell. In this case, I'm going to use my PowerShell scripting. I'm going to say disable USB drives. I want to ask the AI to generate the script for me. So what it is currently doing right now is actually, creating a script that I need to do. So if I were to take this in the real world scenario, what I would have had to do is spend some time trying to research as to how do I disable the drive. If you already have it, then instead of doing it at one machine at a time, you have to build this. So you need to spend a lot of time instead of doing all of this stuff. But if you look at this, as an AI assistant, it's set the property. In this case, all we are basically doing is disabling the rights using the registry key. So it's changing the registry key value. And for good measure, it's also restarting the machine to apply the changes. Now that I've got the script, but I don't want to restart the machine without letting the user know. So I'm going to remove this because what if the user is working on it? So I'm going to throw a message. I can customize the script, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to wait for about 3 or 5 minutes, but I need to throw a message to the user saying that a reboot is required. And then I'm going to do a combination of things. So first things first, I'm going to throw a message saying reboot required, 5 minutes delay. I'm going to choose a 5 minutes delay, then force restart the machine. So basically I have the script doing the job and I have the pop-up window. And again, another thing to notice, I'm not writing a script out here, I'm just giving the variables. So we've got you covered there as well. So I select the machines that I need to work on. In this case, I'm just going to choose my workstations. And I can also do servers, but I don't want to do my servers because I don't want to restart my servers. I just choose my workstations and I basically run it at one shot. But if I want to run it, let's say at 5 in the evening, because I know these guys are working right now, I want to do it later in the evening, I can choose to run it at 5:30. So the job's going to run at 5:30 on 6 of my machines, which is going to uninstall, basically change the registry key and then restart the machine for good measure, right? So this is where you have the remote execution. Again, I can do it based on a customer. I don't have to do it on a bunch of them. I can do it with my different customers that I've got, and I can work on each of those customers and pull up reports on all of them. Now, this kind of sums up the whole workflow. So like I said, you have an option to do an ad hoc remote support for your non-contractual customers, and you can do it without installing any application, making any changes, one-click support. You have an option to do the mobile device support as well as the hardware support. Every time a user has any hardware issue, you can do a hardware support. Then you can switch between users and keep a track of which user asks for what kind of support. Now, let's say you have another customer who says he needs to be able to manage the device and monitor them. We have taken care of that as well. So you can actually manage the device, keep a check on the antivirus, set up alerts so you can proactively look for conditions and then resolve those conditions. And if you have to do changes on a particular customer's machine at one shot, you use the AI engine to build your script and then run it on all of these machines at one shot rather than having to do it one machine at a time. So that's, and at the end of the day, you get a complete report of who did what and recording of who did what on each of these sessions, right? So that pretty much sums up my demo. I think I overshot my time, but if you have any questions, you know who to reach out. You always have Nick, you've got Will, and you can always reach out to us and we'd be happy to help you out as much as possible.
Thanks, Jay. Just before we move on, I just wanted to highlight one of the things you mentioned there, and one of the things I said as well about like how a lot of support tools are out in the marketplace, and there's nearly an abundance of tools, and what we hear from MSPs is why I use this free tool, which is great because you may save a couple of dollars, pounds, euros, whatever per month, but what Jay was showing there is so powerful. And what we've seen with a lot of MSPs that we work with have been able to retrospectively adjust their support contracts to be able to say, okay, when you call me up with an issue, I'm not just getting in my van, or my car, coming straight to, your site to solve an issue that can be done remotely. The number of MSPs, and I think that I saw the stat on this, Jay, is like 70% of reduced call outs from using, GoToResolve, which is massive. So, if you can save that much time, how much does that equate to in money in your business? And if you can think of anything today around GoToResolve, that is something to think is, how can I save money, but how can I make money in my business? And then talking of money, it's probably a good lead into you, Amy, to talk around some incentives. Thanks, Jay. Really appreciate the demo there.
Yeah. Just to drop in before Amy as well, sorry. First of all, thank you, Jay, for providing that. Just on that point, Will, I just wanted to mention that in terms of the feedback again from partners that we've had initially around that camera sharing feature, so the live lens feature, we've had such positive feedback from that, from partners where they, particularly where they're sending sort of technicians to site, unnecessarily in some cases where they could be resolved just by having that functionality. So such positive feedback from that, just that individual functionality as a starting point. So
I like your pun there, Nick, around the resolved. It could be resolved. Hence it's called GoToResolve. Very good.
We have had a couple of questions in actually, so I don't know if should we go over those now, because they're probably going to be fired at for Jay, really, I think. So just before I pass over to Amy, the first one we've got is, can you let us know what the overhead of running this agent is on a remote machine?
That's a very good question. We want to keep it as light as possible. Unfortunately, like I said, we didn't have the time to actually go into each of these. We want to keep it as light as possible, be it if the if the user is working from a completely enterprise connection, or because we have users working in a remote location. We have a logistical, like a fleet management system, where the guys are on the field and they actually use 4G, and sometimes the 4G is not as as good. So we have kept it to a point. The system requirement, just to put it in perspective, this current day and age, the system requirement is 256 to 512 kbps is good enough for an internet connection. And also, when you're talking about the overhead with respect to the CPU or the RAM utilization, it's negligible. So we need something with about 1 MB RAM, because that's all the limitation is, and also about 20 megs of storage. And if you're talking about overhead with respect to how much work it would involve me to keep it updated and running, absolutely zero, because it's a one-time activity that you have to do. Because once you install it, it does the self-installation. I think I know where the question is kind of coming from, because there are certain tools in the place where you have to keep it updating, and for you to update means you have to go to the customer's location and then do the job again. So you don't have to do that. It's just install it, forget it, and maintain it right from one centralized place.
Perfect, thank you, Jay. And then the second question we've had is, can we run recurrent scripts on a schedule?
That's what we're going to be planning on. It's going to be coming up, but it's not just running a recurrent script on schedule. We're actually planning on what we call as self-healing scripts. So one of the things that I did not have the time, because I kind of overshot my time, was that we have something called as alerts. So alerting here, let's say, for example, if you go back and look at the type of calls that you're getting, look at the type of tickets that you're getting, I'm pretty sure at least 50 to 60% of the tickets could be automated, like users saying my application has failed, or I'm not able to access this particular machine. Or take a simple case, I'm not able to print out something. Now, if you take a case of printing, the first thing is the printer spool is kind of full out. So what do, right? Instead of me waiting for someone and then raising a ticket, when someone raises a ticket, that's already too late, because you're spending your time. Why not just have a tool do these basic activities? So that's where the remote execution that you saw with the AI generated scripting can be triggered to run based on a particular alert. So I can set up conditions saying that if a service fails or if a service stops, then I automatically restart it. So the end user never has to worry about something going down. And then I can proactively do these activities, and at the end of the day, pull up reports. Because a best solution or a best remote solution is the one that you don't have to remote in and disturb the user. As long as you can keep your customers happy, they don't need to really reach out to you, which means you have the perfect tool in place. And that's the idea that we're kind of going with. So yes, to your question, you can schedule it, and we're going to be introducing the option to actually run it on a condition-based scenario. So if something happens, then run a particular script. So you focus on something that needs a human effort and let the automation tool do the job that can be repeated multiple times.
Perfect, thank you, Jay. I suppose a key takeaway point from that is that, again, as a sort of next action for partners on this call, is to maybe book a call so we can do a bit of a deeper dive into their requirements, go over some of the more advanced features that you mentioned there. So
exactly.
Perfect. But I don't think we've got any more, so I will hand over to Amy now. Sorry about that, Amy, just interjecting, but you've got some details about a brilliant incentive we're running at the moment.
Of course, yeah, no problem at all. Thank you so much for the intro, and thanks everyone for the demonstrations, and yeah, just amazing stuff. And yeah, I just wanted to follow on with an incentive that we're going to be running. So you can actually earn £500 with GoTo, and all you have to do, so at the end of this call, you will actually get a pop-up question that will ask you whether you want to be signed up to the GoTo Partner Exchange portal. In there, you'll find all training materials, access to information on our incentives, and so forth. So please do click on that at the end. And there are 4 steps, so that will complete the first step for you done. The next step is for us to book a tailored demo with you. So if you we'll reach out to you with an email, we'll share the deck and presentation, and if you book a demonstration with us, that's and you can have that with Jay, then we will complete step 2, and then there's just a couple of training courses that will be available to you on Partner Exchange. They take less than an hour in total, and once that's complete, we will transfer the £500. And I think that's it from me. But I just wanted to, I had Q&A in here. I'm not sure if anything else was coming in the last few minutes, but I'll invite everyone back just to see if there's anything else. And, cool. Anything else, Nick? Or Will?
Can't hear you there, Nick. I think you may be on mute there. I just wanted to say as well that incentive is specifically with Inti as well, so it has to be registered via Inti. GoTo isn't running that incentive directly. It's via the Inti channel anyway. So probably the next best step is probably what Nick was going to say, is to, I'm sure, repeat it, is to reach out to your Inti rep. Is that correct, Nick? Is that the best next step?
Just if you reach out to us, obviously there is an interest given that you're on this webinar today. But yeah, reach out to your account manager or to Amy Smith, who heads up the agency team at Inti, and we'll book in that demo. Delve into your requirements, because again, there's so many solutions that are on offer with GoTo. We've kind of given you a whistle-stop tour of each one today, but we can really delve a bit deeper into those, answer your questions on a one-to-one basis. That's the demo part completed as part of that incentive. And then the training course, if you did, again, you want to push that further, was it 48 minutes or something you mentioned, Amy? And that's it, you'll be covered off in terms of that incentive. So a really, really strong incentive, quite easy to cover off. So hopefully, yeah, I'd like to see you sign up for that one.
I think we have one more question as well, just asking if we offer any NFR licenses for internal use.
The answer is yes, isn't it, Will? I mean, it's through the website, isn't it? So how long is it? A 30-day or 14-day, Will?
All right, yeah. So as a testing solution for the kit, there's a 2-week trial that's available. But in terms of MSPs using the solution internally, no, there isn't any, not for no free licenses, no. But that's if we can have that conversation following the demonstration. We specific discounts available for Inti partners that that you can't get directly. So that that's a good conversation to have.
Yeah, and just on the note around the pricing, again, it's going to be bespoke, isn't it? Dependent on the partner's requirements. But one thing I will say, again, just a bit of feedback for you guys, is that because it's all in one, there's no add-ons. If you did want, ticketing, or you want the remote part of the solution or the visual engagement, it's just all included in that one solution. So again, another massive benefit rather than having to buy all these different modules that you might get with some other solutions out there.
I want to highlight as well in terms of, because like I said, there is a lot in the market of, free solutions, cheap solutions, but this solution here is engineered and, pioneered around for MSPs and to, help you not just save money, to make money as well, which is the best way of looking at this, in providing the best support to your customers. And that's something we do day in and day out. So I think that's for me from a GoTo perspective. I want to say thanks to Inti for asking us to talk today. Appreciate the offer, and look forward to speaking to you all soon.
Perfect. Just to echo that back to you as well. Thanks, Will, Ranjit, and Amy. And hope you all enjoyed that today. Thanks for joining, and we'll be in touch with next steps. Thanks, everyone.